Right, so it's 4 o'clock, so I think we'll make a start. I'll do a quick intro and then I'll hand over to Martin. But good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lizzie Buckler. I'm the Client Relations Manager for the NEBRC. This is our Cybersecurity for the Education Sector webinar, which we're doing in partnership with NERSOU, Lincoln College and Redstor. So during the webinar, if you've got any questions, feel free to use the chat function, which is on the top right, but we've also allocated some time at the end for questions as well. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Martin.
Good afternoon, everybody. So we've got a lot to fill into the next hour or so, and just a quick whistle-stop tour of what we're going to discuss. So you'll have myself and John Hudson, who will give you an introduction to the North East Business Resilience Centre and NERSOU, and I'm going to just give you a brief overview of what some of the common threats are from a cyber point of view and an informational point of view to the education sector. And John's going to touch on exercise Athena, which is a really useful way of cyber exercising for school, and it's a free offering, and I won't steal up too much of his thunder because he will cover that. Then this is quite a rare thing in my experience. We've got an actual college and an actual IT manager who was unfortunate enough to experience a ransomware incident in that college, and he's going to talk us through how that happened and things that they've done differently. So it's very, very rare. Normally most people shy away from talking about the experiences in this space. So yeah, I look forward to listening to that one. Then Ed from Redstor is going to talk to you about some of the solutions that are available. A lot of it's to do with backing up of information. You've got a backup that you can restore to, so you don't have to pay the ransom if you find yourselves in that situation. And then we've got a bit of a Q&A at the end. So briefly, I won't steal too many others' thunder because people will introduce themselves. Myself, I am a police officer. I am from the northeast of England, and I'm seconded into the North East Business Resilience Centre, which I'll tell you about very shortly. And then we've got John Hudson, who will shout up on his slide, give you a brief intro to him. But John and I used to work together. He works in a special operations unit that deals with going after the high levels of the bad guys, and John's done a lot of work in the cybercrime prevention space. Then we've got Graham. Graham is the IT director from Lincoln College. And then we've got Ed. So what is the North East Business Resilience Centre and a CRC network, and what is the Cyber Protect network? Well, fundamentally, these are government-backed, Home Office-backed, National Police Chief Councils backed, endorsed, free levels in many respects, advice, trusted support that is available for you. You've just got to be aware that it's there and how it can be leveraged. So as an example, you've got John Hudson and the team that he works with that can offer some free training and some free cyber exercising, and that includes schools and colleges, and you'll learn more about that shortly. Then you've got these non-for-profit cybersecurity centres. What does that mean? It means that we use undergraduate ethical hacking talent, you know, these bright young things that know all sorts around ethical hacking, and we use those talents to offer low-cost cybersecurity services. Now, the low cost is great because hopefully the cost can be a barrier, but actually when you say low cost and you say students, sometimes people think, well, that's either an unprofessional arrangement or it's certainly not going to be very good. Let me assure you that is not the case. It is fully supported. The students are fully mentored and supervised by people who have years of experience in this sector. But the brilliant thing is for them is they get the experience of doing this sort of work. So and very much the centres that you can see on the map there are popping up and down the country. Basically, we're here, we can help, and you can get in touch with us in various ways, which you'll find out towards the end of this slide. But just be aware that we're here and we can help. So if I'm going to talk to you about risk and threat, then I think it's a good idea to start sort of honing in on what that risk and threat might specifically look like in your particular sector. And the ICO, the information compliance people, what they do is they release data trends. So every quarter, they release information on investigations they've had. So these could be public or private sector companies that have been unfortunate to suffer a data breach in some way, shape or form. And they release that information completely anonymized. And I think it's one of the misnomers we sometimes have around information compliance, that they're here to get involved and to fine us and to give us all sorts of bad publicity when it happens, when actually I think they're here to support, they're here to try and stop it from happening. And actually some of the data they release can very much inform some of the decisions that we make. So by that, I mean, what you see flashing up on the screen here, and I know this is quite a busy slide, so apologies for that, is on the left-hand side, the axis there shows you the different sectors. So you can see that we have education here, which is what we will hone on. And the green bar tells us the total number of incidents that that sector has experienced in the last year. The purple bar is the informational risks, which I'll come to shortly, so informational data breaches. And the blue bar is the number of cyber incidents. Now, what you can see holistically across the board in the different sectors is informational tends to outstrip cyber, other than written retail and manufacturing, but actually there are some close relations to the two, and I'll cover those things shortly. But you can kind of see that actually as education as a sector, I believe, is the top 3 most affected sectors for this sort of stuff. So you can see straight away, if you didn't already know this, to use a Northeastern saying, teach my granny how to suck eggs, this is important to the educational sector. The very fact that you're here probably means that you share that importance. So these are the educational informational risks. So on the left-hand side, it's the stuff that's gone wrong. And what I want you to pull from this slide really is, other than other non-cyber incident, which I can't really tell you what that is because the ICO don't break it down, the 2 biggest risks are when stuff is emailed to the wrong person, or the BCC field's not used, or stuff is posted to the wrong person. So it could be, the wrong information about a child emailed to the wrong parents. It doesn't have to be the hackers getting into the systems for the stuff to go wrong. We live in an age where data is power. It has power in the wrong hands. And we all have an obligation now, certainly when we're dealing with personal identifiable information, to safeguard it. So really, this slide teases out some of the informational risks that are maybe there. From a cyber point of view, the things on the left-hand side are the different kind of cyber attacks, which we don't have the time to go into them all. So I'll concentrate on the 2 top 3. Well, surprise, surprise, I hope I'm not being patronizing when I say this, phishing is one of the #1 risks, and it has been for a number of years. And that hasn't changed, probably because the bad guys know they're getting the most bang for the buck out of it. They're getting the most success. So phishing is a real risk, if you didn't already know that. Followed by ransomware. Now, ransomware can be delivered via phishing emails, but it can be delivered in other ways as well. So in terms of your #1 malware risk, if you like, it's ransomware. So that is the computer virus that comes along and encrypts all your information, which I know Graham will give us a real life case study about. And actually it's unauthorized access. And this tends to be stolen credentials, so stolen email and password pairs that are stolen from data breaches that they can then be used to go and log into other systems. Or if I, as a bad guy, know what your password is, say I know what your password is for PayPal, there's a good chance I'm going to try that against Amazon, etc., etc., etc. Why? Because I know human beings, we tend to use the same password, and a lot of us don't enable 2-factor authentication still. So I know that that works. That's probably a lot of the unauthorized access is caught in there. So really, summarizing, from an educational point of view, you have some real risks around sending the wrong information to the wrong people via email or post. And you also have some real risks around phishing, ransomware, and unauthorized access. So Lizzie, do you just want to shout up at this point around the free core membership and what people that are on this webinar can expect from us?
Yeah, sure. So for those of you that aren't signed up to our core membership already, we offer a core membership which is completely free, but it helps keep organisations a bit more secure and a bit more knowledgeable about cybercrime. So the type of things we can offer within that, we distribute a fortnightly e-newsletter containing the latest trends and threats around cybersecurity, like the ones that Martin's just presented, so we can keep aware of that. You get a networking link into the local police protect officers from the forces and the ROCUs, such as John. You get a welcome pack with information about our partners, structure and the type of services that we can offer. We also do cyber health checks, which is a specific analysis of your organisation, and from there we can provide specific recommendations as well as access to other resources and things that come out from the NCSC. So we'll sign attendees up to this, but if you'd like to opt out, you can do so after this webinar through email, or just clicking the opt out button when you get the first communication. But it's of real benefit, and there's some really good information that comes out from that. So I'll pass back.
Thanks, Lizzie. Thanks, Lizzie. So just going to hand over to John. John, do you want to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Exercise Athena, which I know has huge value?
You think I'm getting used to unmuting myself after a year and a half of doing remote Teams calls? But yeah, cheers, Marty. Cheers, Lizzie. So yeah, as has been mentioned, my name's John Hudson, and I am one of the regional prepare and protect officers for the North-Northeast. North-Northeast being the force boundaries of Cleveland, Durham and Northumbria. The core theme, or the core underlying theme of my role, is essentially cybercrime prevention. But on the flip side of that as well, we do a lot of work around what businesses and organisations and schools need to do or can prepare for in the event of an actual cyber attack. So by exercising organisations and schools, we can test incident response plans, incident response teams, and link that into business continuity plans. And one of the pieces of work that we've been doing over the last 12 to 18 months is Exercise Athena, which has looked at a bit of a gap in the market from an exercising point of view and a guidance point of view. We looked at stated guidance from ISO, CREST and NIST, and we've tried to make that more relevant for schools because they are very, very big business, large business heavy. So by doing that, we've liaised with some schools as part of our local authority. We've run some pilots of Exercise Athena, and we're getting some very good feedback. So it was just 60 seconds of my time just to make sure that you knew that that offering was out there. Should you want to test your incident response plans, and there's some stuff that goes alongside it as well in terms of prerequisites to read before we do the exercise. But it's a simplified way of testing schools' response plans, and it's relevant for schools. So if you do want to take us up on the offer, or any other free services that we do offer, please do get in touch. My contact details are there on the slide. It's also worth pointing out that although I said I was part of the North-Northeast, the Yorkshire and Humber Regional Organised Crime Unit do offer this service as well. So if you are part of the Yorkshire and Humber Force boundaries, please do get in touch with me, and I can forward that on to our colleagues in Yorkshire and Humber. Thanks, Marty.
Thanks, John. So John, just to clarify, that would be a case of potentially getting lots of people on one room or one webinar and sort of teasing out what an attack might look like in an organisation, and sort of doing like injects and sort of test and response plans that way. Is that about right?
Absolutely, yeah. So we can do it both ways. To be fair, we could do it with an individual school or college, and then we can do it in a larger environment where we can invite multiple schools and colleges. And that, to be fair, is a good way of doing it because the schools and colleges can share learning with each other as well. Yeah,
I agree. I think the joint exercising is a really good place. Plus, you know, everybody's in the same boat, and you can get the great network in that way. So yeah, that's great. Thanks, John. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to hand over to Graham, who's had the unfortunate experience of firsthand of having his college that he works for suffer a cyber attack. And Graham, if you just want to share your screen when you're ready, thank you very much for speaking about this. We really appreciate it.
Hi, how's that? Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Great. Okay. So yeah, my name is Graham Harrison. I'm the Group Director of IT, Information Management and Projects at Lincoln College. And over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to talk about how a cyber attack happens, what it feels like, and how it might be possible to come out of the other side of it. And just to set the context, Lincoln College is a large general further education college. So we have about 5,000 students spread across Lincolnshire and another college in Nottinghamshire, about 30 million turnover in the UK. And we're about as big again in Saudi Arabia and China. So we're about a 60 million turnover business, just to set the context. So on the 20th of November last year, so almost a year ago to the day, at about 8 p.m, our college group came under a sophisticated and sustained and multifaceted, very clever cyber attack from the Sodinikibi criminal group, who are an organised crime gang who operate from St. Petersburg in Russia. You know, this is part of what we found out later on. So no data was stolen, when the investigation closed, but the network infection was widespread, and it required a full build of our IT infrastructure from scratch. And then the objective of this attack was to encrypt all our data, and then to invite us to pay £1 million to get the data back. So on the 9th of December, which was just 17 days after that attack, all of the core services have been fully restored and made available. That included a full restore of nearly 100 servers, 1,600 desktop computers across 5 sites, completely wiped back to the boot sector and re-imaged. 1,000 staff passwords have been reset, and staff have been individually contacted by a pop-up call centre with their new details. 5,000 student passwords have been reset. A new advanced threat protection capability have been fully implemented. 8 major systems upgrades and changes have been delivered to strengthen security, because if you just bring back exactly what you had before, it will just get hacked again the minute you put it back. So you can't just recover, you have to recover and improve. And all of our reporting obligations to the Information Commissioner's Office, the insurers, the ESFA, the legal side of things, the police, Interpol, all of the reporting obligations have been fully delivered and dispensed with. And on reflection, that gives rise to 3 questions that I often get asked and I often talk about. That's how did we get hit in the first instance? How did we recover so quickly? And what measures might you consider putting in place to lessen the chance of being hit and to stay safe? So I normally do a bit more on this slide than I'm going to do. This is what a ransomware attack feels like and how it happens. But I'm going to just do the first one and the last one in the interest of time. So initially, an attacker gains access to your systems, and it can be relatively low tech and basic. So they might steal a password. And I know Martin talked about people's tendency to reuse passwords across sites. So they might pay a site to steal a load of passwords and then work out that you've used the same one. Or they could log in as a legitimate student, because we have students in China, we have students in Syria. So you can log in as a legitimate remote student, or you can pay a disgruntled employee to give their username and password, and even give the criminals their mobile phone if you're using multi-factor. So it's relatively simple to get in, and then they go through a process of watching, waiting, finding ways of doing what we call permission escalation. So they get more and more permissions without alerting people to the fact that they're inside your IT. And then I'll skip all those other steps and go to step 7. When they're ready, and this can take weeks, it can take months, or at this point, they can even have sold the intelligence onto another gang to actually have a go at you. They get everything in line, they press the button, and they start encrypting your files, and they leave ransom notes. And by the way, you can never pay. You can never pay for several reasons. For one, because they're criminals and they're probably going to come back for more. For 2, certainly for colleges, our regulator, the ESFA, have a rule in place that if we pay a ransom, we won't get funded. So that would be 13 million of income out of our 30 million lost. And thirdly, the Sodinikibi group were a prescribed organisation. So if you paid, you would be funding terrorism. So lots of reasons why you need to get back on your feet, and you can't ever consider paying, unless human life is at risk. That might be the one exception. So also to know, we had Cyber Essentials Plus in place, we had cyber insurance, we had access to good IT staff, we had really good traditional defenses like antivirus, firewalls, policies, and none of that stops us from being attacked. So I often include this slide because people forget actually what the human impact is. What does it feel like to be on the receiving end of this? And for our organization, like, everything was gone for 17 days, payroll, email. So we couldn't pay staff, we couldn't submit our returns, we couldn't pay suppliers, we couldn't send an email, we couldn't make a phone call because our phone system runs on the servers, we couldn't make a Teams call because that all runs through the integrated authentication, we couldn't print or copy anything because the copiers run through a central system, and we couldn't access any of our office documents. So the business was hamstrung throughout the period. Staff and customers, how do they feel? Well, your staff customers, typically our customers are students and parents, they'd be confused, they'll feel anxious, they'll be concerned, they'll be fearful, they'll lose confidence in your organization. And if it's a commercial business with competitors, they'll look to your competitors and consider alternatives. And how do the IT and cyber teams feel? Well, any IT staff involved, they're going to bear the brunt. They'll feel very tired. So through that 17 days, the shortest working day I had was 20 hours. I literally had 10 hours sleep over that month. They'll feel responsible because their systems have been breached. They'll be suffering from anxiety and genuinely be suffering from stress. They won't be sure they can recover it because none of them will ever have tried doing this before. And that will make them ensure their future, because if I'd have been responsible for the IT and we couldn't have got it back, then I wouldn't have been going back to work. I would have had to have resigned because I'm responsible for that. And that's how the people feel, and that's a bit about the human impact. So I like to talk about the 3 levels of cyber protection and threat protection. And just do a bit of the background, and this is my personal views, having been through it. So you've got your traditional IT security, what I call traditional IT security. So you've got your usernames and passwords, multi-factor authentication, so a call to your phone as people log in. You've got all your systems admin permissions, keep your servers up to date, all your antivirus software, keep your antivirus definitions up to date. You've got good industry strength firewall, have accreditation with Cyber Essentials, educate your staff. That's what I call traditional. The other thing that increasingly you need is something called advanced threat protection. And I'll explain that without using any jargon. So all of the traditional stuff, if you think of your IT systems as a castle with an outer wall and a moat, the traditional IT security is building your wall higher or making your moat deeper and stopping people getting in. Advanced threat protection is something new, and it's actually quite expensive, but increasingly critical. It assumes that somehow the enemy have got over the wall and across your moat, and they've got into the castle. They're already there, and then it works using artificial intelligence techniques to look for intruders that stand out a bit. In the analogy I'm using, they dress a bit differently, they have a different accent, they're behaving suspiciously, and advanced threat protection identifies the invaders by that behavior and then tackles them to the ground, isolates them and stops them from causing any damage before it's too late. So it's a very different perspective. Traditional IT security stops them getting in, and advanced threat protection deals with them once they're in. And when we were here, we had really good traditional IT security, but we didn't have advanced threat protection at the time because we were considering the cost versus the risk, and it's not cheap. It's expensive, but it's become a hygiene factor and necessary to do business. And the third thing you need is the ability to recover from absolute zero. And what I mean by this is that when your systems are down, if you ask an IT person, how are you going to recover? They will say, we're going to turn on our backup server and we're going to apply the backups. To which the response in the ransomware scenarios. Well, you can't turn your backup server on because it's probably infected, and the instant you power it on, that infection is going to start spreading again. So you've got zero, you've got nothing, no servers, no storage. Now how do you recover? And you normally see IT people go a bit pale when you put this scenario to them. Now, we did have a recovery from absolute zero plan when we were here. So we had the traditional IT security, we had the ability to recover from zero, but we didn't have advanced threat protection. So I move on to talk about what measures can facilitate effective recovery. And this is my personal view, and it's something that I've come to as a result of being on the receiving end of it. So staffing, you do need access to good internal IT staff, to stand any chance of getting back. You need your own IT team, and you need good traditional defences. Senior leadership buy-in is very important. So if you're an organisation, if you're, we're a large organisation, and actually unusual for a college that in my role as the CTO stroke CN, Chief Technical Officer, Chief Information Officer, I have a seat on the executive leadership team, on the most senior management team in the college, and that gives you a voice and that gets things done. You need investment, you need ring-fenced investment in security. And having been through it, my thoughts are that you should be ring fencing about 0.5% of turnover. So for a college of our size, you should be spending about 150k a year on things like a cyber partner, antivirus, malware, enterprise grade backups, advanced threat protection, an industry standard firewall, audit resources. So you must have ring fenced investment. You have to have enterprise grade backups. So we have a three layer backup at the college. We have disk snapshots, enterprise grade backups where we have a partner who's on the end of the phone 24 hours a day. And your final layer of backups is tapes and cloud. If you see a IT engineer running around in a crisis waving a tape, it's the game is up. And one of the nights I was awake all night, sat at my terminal, talking to people. I did a quick calculation of how long it would have taken us to have recovered the basic data if our backups had been in the cloud, and it would have taken 56 days just to restore the basics because cloud restore is slow. You need a disaster recovery plan to be able to get back from absolute zero. You need a very good cyber insurance policy, and you need to have tested that and ask questions about what is the level of indemnity. Will they let me use my cyber partner? Do they have a partnership with a strong legal firm? So it's no good just having any old cyber insurance. You need to check the small print and make sure that it is all solid. You also need a qualified cybersecurity partner. Now, we didn't have this at the time, but since the attack we do. We have gone into partnership with a cyber expert consultancy called CryptoCloud that bring a whole additional level of expertise. So my IT team are good, but these cyber experts spend 60 hours a week doing nothing but cyber related work. So internal IT do lots of things. They can't possibly compete with guys with that level of time and commitment, and you need that extra insurance. So you have two completely different sets of eyes on it: internal IT and external cyber partner, which multiplies by many orders of magnitude your chance of spotting things. And the final thing you need is centralized IT systems. So we were able to start imaging our computers and getting them back from the center. We didn't have to visit every single place across Lincolnshire and Nottinghamshire. Otherwise, we'd still be restoring now. And we had a central method of resetting and communicating all those passwords, without which we couldn't have recovered in any length of time. So my considered view, having been through it and having got the scars on my back, is if you have every one of these measures in place, I think you will recover from a well-organized ransomware attack in maybe under a week. If your IT is exceptionally well run and you have most of these things in place, maybe you're missing 1, 2, 3 of them, you could probably recover in 3 to 4 weeks. But we did learn of educational institutions that have been out of action, or at least not properly restored for several months. And we know of some that lost data that they were simply never ever able to recover. So as you drop down to you've got half of these, 1 or 2, 3 of them, you may be into permanent loss. And we also know that the Information Commissioner's Office, if they manage to steal data and sell it on the dark web, could be a fine which equates to 4% of turnover, or £17.5 million, whichever is greater. So that's my view of the things that you need to have in place. And it begs a question for non-technical people: how do you know? And it can appear at times that cybersecurity is in the realms of science fiction, and it's an area that we see in films. We think it's never going to happen to us, and the experts talk a language that the rest of us don't understand. So what I've come up with is this formula for asking 9 questions, and if you ask them well, it can be a non-technical person asking, and you will quickly know where your organization is in terms of its resistance to attack. So start by asking the question: do we have cyber insurance in place? Is it good insurance? What's the level of indemnity? And just keep going deeper. Do we have immutable backups? Now, what I mean by that is a backup that cannot be corrupted by ransomware, because we know of organizations where the hackers got in, they've encrypted the data, they've found where the backups are stored, and they've encrypted the backups as well. And then an organization is lost if that happens. So you get around this by having a backup technology which is already encrypted, which cannot be encrypted by a hacker, or a set of backups which are immutable, which mean they can't be changed. Have you got a recovery from absolute zero plan? And have you tested that in a dry room with your IT team? Do you have that ring-fenced IT security budget, which for a further education college would be 0.5% of turnover, for a uni 1% of turnover, in my view? Have you had an independent critique of your internal IT security? Because if it's only IT security that are saying, yes, it's all good, you need more than one view to verify that. Have we got an advanced threat protection capability in place, that technology that once they've managed to find a way through your defenses and they're into your castle, that AI-backed advanced threat protection that can identify an attack and close it down before it causes any damage? Have we got a partnership with a trusted and proven cybersecurity partner? Have we checked them out, checked their credentials, been to see them, talked to some of their customers? Do we have meaningful audit and certification in place? We had Cyber Essentials and we still got hit, but it's better than nothing. You can have a COBRA audit, which goes further, and you can have internal audits. So having some level of audit and certification, do you have that in place? And my last question I would ask is cybersecurity something which is regularly discussed around the table of the executive leadership team? And is it brought to board meetings for a briefing? Because that says that it has sight at the most senior level of the organisation. And if you can ask all of those questions and get credible answers, a non-technical person can ask those questions and build up a level of confidence that you do have a decent resistance in place. But the advanced threat protection is key. Without it, it's just a matter of time and luck. And we know from our experiences that Russian gangs are targeting Western education institutions, and they don't tend to do it for money, because we don't tend to pay. But the insurer who we work with, who were very good, fed back to me that their view is that state-backed or maybe state-overlooked cyber terrorism in Russia is specifically targeting Western education to cause disruption in the education system. So that is my 20 minutes up. It's been a bit of a canter through something that I often take 45 minutes over, but I hope that's given you a flavour of how we got here, what it feels like, and what you need to do to survive. And my closing point is this: what happens in the 3 weeks after a cyber attack is determined by the 3 years you spend preparing for it. And if you haven't prepared for it, then it won't be 3 weeks. It'll be 3 months or longer. So I'll leave it there because my 20 minutes are up. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Graham. That was incredibly useful and insightful, and to hear firsthand from somebody that's gone through it and to share your learnings is incredibly useful. I'll hand over now to Ed, who's going to talk to you a bit around the work that Redstor have done in this space to protect schools. Over to you, Ed.
Thank you very much, Graham. I've got to say, mate, I've seen a few attacks being made. That is one of the best presentations I've ever seen around the kind of challenges that you've experienced. So I imagine that was extremely valuable to not only me but everybody in the audience as well. Right, guys, I don't know how I follow on from there. I'll condense mine down into just less than 10 minutes. In terms of what I'm going to cover, we'll look through the kind of, I think we've covered a lot of the threat landscape. So we'll look into some of the warnings and the guidance from NCSC and the DFE, look at what constitutes offline backup in their world, and we'll cover off with a very short demo showing you how we recover customers from a ransomware attack. And some of the points, by the way, that Graham made around cloud restores being slow, that's a very, very valid point, and I will cover that as well. So look, guys, this won't be lost on anybody on the call in terms of the DFE guidelines. I know you guys are getting emails from them, from the NCSC, and this has grown because, as Martin alluded to at the beginning of the call, the education sector is one of the sectors which is being picked on the most by these threat actors for one of many reasons. But if we look at the kind of top three points from the NCSC, which are supported by the NCSC, this is about ensuring that you are backing up the important data. Doesn't necessarily need to be all of your data, just the really important stuff. So it's also understanding within your pool of data what is important and what's not important to you. Being able to test on the recovery processes from your backup schedule and implement an offline protection. Now, obviously, you guys know what offline is. Offline is essentially having a complete separate network, a separation at a network level, so that you've got as much chance of being kind of I can't get the word out, but in terms of you having the most chance of not being hit by these threat actors, is that your data is completely separated, even at a network layer. So as ransomware attacks have grown to be more sophisticated over the last few years, on-site backup servers have become targets, as we know. An offline backup protects your data in a location that is separate from your network and in which your live data sits. So if your backup is on the same network as your live data, a ransomware infection takes hold, all the data on the network, including the backups, is effectively susceptible. Now, in terms of how Redstor kind of meet those challenges, the data is the target in terms of Redstor is always offline on a completely separate network. And that is data that is coming from your local environment, but that's also data that's maybe stored in your cloud environment. I imagine most of you guys have been forced over the last 18 months to adopt the likes of Microsoft 365 and Google Workplace in anger because of the fact that we've been having to work remotely. We have designed a complete air-gapped offline environment, and that data is stored within the UK boundaries as well, so that retains sovereignty for you, whether your data is being backed up from your local environment into the Redstor cloud or from the Microsoft or Google cloud. That also comes out of their environments and into the Redstor cloud. We can actually test on, when we run a trial for you guys, before you've even done anything, we can help you work out what your critical data is. But more importantly, we have an AI malware detection program. So even though we fully encrypt our data 256-bit at rest, and then we double that into a 128K in transit, We also have a malware protection layer for any data that is already in your environment. And as Graham alluded to, even with the best front-end controls, these threat actors still can squeak through the net and into your production area. So with Redstor, before you even do anything, before you press any buttons, we can very easily tell you through a set of reports if you actually have any dormant malware sitting in your production environments. And as I mentioned, you can set up controls. Everything is fully monitored and supported. And we can also have a report sent to you on as frequent a basis as you need it. So the real predication with Redstor, one of the reasons why we work with 60% of the education market and why we are becoming a go-to for the NCSC, for the DFE, for the cyber insurance market, is because we are not predicated on hardware. This is all very much agent-based. We don't need local devices to manage the backups. It goes straight from the endpoint into the Redstor cloud. So if right now, if you're hit by ransomware, as Graham mentioned, how easy would it be for you to recover or rebuild a machine? How do you stop cyber criminals taking advantage of what's been going on over the pandemic? We recommend you have a fire break, otherwise known as an air gap, in place, which means not having a primary backup target on premise, which can be susceptible to ransomware as the rest of your network. Sorry. We provide end-to-end encryption. So if you back up ransomware while it's idle and prior to it executing, it becomes inert in the backup, so it cannot propagate in our DC. And we can also help you roll back to a point in time prior to when the infection occurred, or if able to isolate the source of ransomware, you can recover everything apart from that particular data set, recover data that you know to be safe after the breach instantly. So guys, just very quickly, I'm conscious of time. In terms of GDPR regulation and compliance, the key bits that we kind of take from that is having the ability to restore the availability and access to personal data in a timely manner, and a process for regularly testing, assessing, and evaluating the effectiveness of that layer. So right now, if you guys don't have a third party helping process your data, become the data processor in that data management chain, you guys being the data controller effectively are on the hook for everything. Implementing a third party layer like Redstor takes a lot of that pain away from being compliant, because we are giving you those air gaps. We're giving you the ability to access the data instantly, and we'll show you that. I'll show you that in a second. And we can give you the ability to test that as regularly and as often as you need to. So what we've developed, if we come back to that, one of the points that Graham mentioned about data being slow to recover from the cloud, we all know on this call that data recovery from getting it from one place to another is completely, the time is dictated by the amount of data you've got and the amount of bandwidth that you're pushing that data over. So we all know that there's time that it takes to rebuild an entire machine. What Redstor have developed effectively is what we call this an instant data tool. And what this allows you to do is access your data from the Redstor cloud in a streamed fashion, and it can be user driven through a Windows view, an Explorer view, while we are actually recovering we could be recovering a full system in the background, but while that environment's recovering, all of your users can access the last backup. They can troll through and find the data that's important, the spreadsheets, the Word documents that they need, and they can start working instantly on the data. We then track those changes, and once that system has become available, that we've been rebuilding quietly in the background, we just simply sync all of the changes that have been taking place on the last backup during the period that we're restoring the file. So if you think in terms of the premise of it, guys, it's like Netflix for DR. we're streaming files back on demand, and it's being driven by the users themselves, the teachers, the students. They know where the files and the documents are, the items that they need to get to. So it's about giving them an easy view of the world, and a double-click methodology to get to the files, just the same as they would be used to on their local machines in a production environment. And again, guys, you will all know, it's not just about protecting your local data. It's about making sure that you're protecting your data in the cloud as well. We had a mass adoption of Microsoft and Google over the last 18 months, and both of these organizations are not taking any responsibility for the data that you have in production or any of the reasons that that data might be compromised. So Google and Microsoft fall in line with this responsibility slide. And as you can see, guys, they're not taking responsibility for any of the things that we've been talking about today, the things that do cause downtime, that cause alarm, that damage organizations and damage reputations. They are your responsibility right now to protect and put in the measures that are out there, such as Redstor, to make sure that you can recover in the event of a disaster. Now, so conscious of time, so I'm going to flip very quickly to our demo. This is one of our pre-sales engineers executing a ransomware attack and then showing how quickly we can give you access to the data.
So I've just dropped to my desktop here, and on my desktop, you'll see there is a tool here called Disk Checker. So the scenario I'm painting here is that maybe you're having a problem with a server, maybe you've gone onto a Microsoft forum, and somebody who you don't know has put a post up there saying, if you download this tool and you're getting this error, running this Disk Checker tool is going to solve all of your problems. So if I just show you on my hard drive here, I've got a whole host of different files that are in my file server area. So if I just drop back to my desktop, I'm going to simply run this Disk Checker tool. And if we return back to that folder, if we just keep an eye on it for a second, what you might spot, two things that are odd that are actually taking place in a second. So we'll just give that a moment or two to work. There we go. All of a sudden, those nice thumbnails of all my Word documents and various bits and bobs are all of a sudden changed. And now we're hit with an image from the ransomware basically saying that, oops, all of your files have been encrypted. A little bit of an explanation to say, you know, your precious documents, your videos, databases are no longer accessible. However, in order to recover them, you can still recover your files, so that they say, as long as you go onto the darknet, you follow some procedures in getting a Bitcoin, and then using this reference number, you pay the fine, or the ransom, should I say, and then you're at the mercy that this particular payload and the key that you're provided will actually help unencrypt that data. So again, if I return back to my file server area, you can see that all of these files that were originally Word documents and all sorts, if I just take one of these at random, and let's just open it up with Notepad, just to have a little look inside. As you can see, my developer that actually wrote this virus, yeah, he's not held back. In fact, all of that data is encrypted using Chinese hieroglyphics there. Right, so I've got a bit of a problem. So one of the interesting things about ransomware is 9 times out of 10, they're going to leave the operating system functioning, because they want you to be able to see this message over here. They want you to be able to have the confidence in that you pay for that Bitcoin and you get the key back, that the server will be back to normal. So in this case, I don't really care about this file server folder, because I know that I've got it backed up. So I'm just going to simply completely delete that folder, so it's gone. So no problems there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load my backup agent that's installed on my server. And let's just bring that up into view. And you'll see here, this is the Redstor interface. You can see that the D drive on this server was protecting all of those files that were in that folder. Obviously, they're gone now. So in this case, what we're going to simply do is move to the Redstor restore folder or tab, and then you'll see the backup client pull in an index of the last backup on the 29th of June. And then if I plus out the D drive and go and look for my file server, there are all of those files that have just been encrypted. So in my case, because I've got a reliable backup service, I can just simply include those files, hit the restore button at the top. And in this case, I want them to go back to the original location. If I show the advanced options, you'll see that I'm also going to recover the file and folder permissions as they were before. So if I hit restore, we'll now watch the backup client make a SSL TLS encrypted tunnel to Redstor's data center and request the few hundred meg that's in that folder, and then put it back onto my D drive as it looked. Almost done. And there we go. So there's the 297 meg restored in 27 seconds. Obviously, it's only a little bit of test data. And of course, then if I go and revisit after refreshing my folder structure and going into my file server area, there you go. No problems at all. And my files are there as they would have looked like before I was hit with ransomware.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, guys, so just to kind of leave you with some thoughts, understand which of the data in your environment is the most important to you and categorize it accordingly. Check that you are protecting it in the right way, and check that you have an offline copy air-gapped on another network, and always test your recovery. So if I can recommend anything on the back of this call, guys, test a recovery and see how quickly you can get your hands on that critical data that you have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed. So last two slides now, I'm going to open up to questions. If everybody can see this page, basically there's some QR codes. John Hudson's hopefully going to drop a couple of links into the chat, which those QR codes relate to. So you can either scan them now or go for the links, but basically they're links to the NCSC's school cybersecurity guidance. So they can give you some real points to ponder.
Yeah, they're in there, Marty. Cheers.
Thank you. So, any questions? I know that Emma's popped a question into the box, which I'll just go and have a look at now. And yeah, 2 seconds. So I think Emma Lewis's question, sort of a wider question, if anybody's comfortable to talk about leadership within schools, how they're made up and how they're not made up. Obviously, not being on a leadership team in a school. Graham, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Might be different context to obviously how Lincoln College is made up and its international nature, or if there's anybody else that's approached this from a leadership point of view. Graham, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I can't speak from a school perspective because I've never worked in a school, and Lincoln College is a 60 million turnover international business, which probably means it looks and feels quite a lot different. But you know, the key for us is that my role is Chief Information Officer, Chief Technology Officer, and I have a seat on the most senior forum, which is the executive leadership team, and I'm also an attendee at board, and it just means that the most senior staff in the organisation, right up to the CEO, have visibility of cybersecurity and an understanding of it, and of the importance of doing something about it. Now, a lot of colleges don't do that and only have curriculum people on the executive leadership team and none of the supporting functions, and in my experience that does lead to a weaker position in terms of resilience to cyber, because there isn't anybody with the technology and digital voice on the highest table. But I can't speak for schools because I have no experience in that area.
Okay, I think it's about making sure that whoever's on that senior leadership team, that there is a person there that you've alluded to that has the confidence to be able to talk about some of this stuff, or at the very least can maybe bring somebody into that forum whoever that may be, to obviously what we've seen today is how it can all go wrong. And it's quite frightening, really. But fortunately, there's a lot of good solutions out there. And actually, the sort of thought, what I'm getting from this is understand what data is important to you, and that's the data that you couldn't do without, and make sure that you've got a copy of that somewhere that's air gapped and you can restore from, and don't just assume that it's there that you can restore from it. So it's teasing those sorts of conversations out and understanding in that board level environment, I feel. So does anybody have any questions they want to ask of the open forum? Raise a hand or stick them into the chat now. Is there any other burning issues? I'll take that as a no. Lizzie, is there anything you want to add at this point?
No, I don't think so. If nobody's got any other questions.
I've got a question.
You got one.
I've got one for Graham, actually. Graham, could you just kind of explain the process you went in terms of, and the order of play in which you had to report to people, and how kind of arduous that process is? Because I know one of the challenges that Martin's brought up is the lack of people actually notifying of these kinds of attacks and making the people, the organizations like Martin's, aware of these things going on. How quickly did you get into that part of the process, making people aware?
You have to do it from the off, because if you don't make them aware, if they get an awareness of it that doesn't come from you, the penalties and such like can be so much more serious. So we were, our attack happened at 8 p.m. on a Friday night, and they timed it that way because they thought that no IT people would come in until Monday morning, when everything would have been encrypted by then. So when the ICO, the Information Commission's office, opened on Monday morning, we were in contact with them straight away, and I stayed in contact with them throughout, gave them regular updates. So likewise with the insurers, you have to get onto your insurer instantly, and you have to work out the division of responsibilities and what they want to do and what they want you to do. And the insurer will have, if it's a good insurer, they will have a law firm that work alongside them. And actually, our insurer and our legal firm were top notch. We then got on and notified the ESFA, the funding agency, because they specify in their regulations that we have to report to them. We let the police know. We met with the police. We gave them all the details. And because the crime is being committed from outside of the UK's jurisdiction, there was liaison with Interpol as well. And you have to keep everybody updated frequently and regularly, because they want to know. They will want a level of confidence that you can put it back, and especially with an insurer and a legal, if they don't get the confidence that you can get it back, that they will take control. So reporting obligations and the frequency and quality of them is very, very important indeed.
Thank you, sir.
Under that as well, from a law enforcement point of view, obviously there's a criminal investigation side of it, as Graham's touched on, but there's also things that we can do from the protect world as well, in terms of sharing intelligence around particular strains of ransomware, if it happens to be ransomware, so we can get our hands on indicators of compromise, tactics, techniques, and processes as to how the ransomwares work, and to help with that initial detection and mitigation phases of incident response.
Thanks, John. Well, I guess to kind of sum it up then, I guess if I can put it into those 3 points, there is help out there. You've got some free offerings of almost cyber exercise and gamifying this sort of thing out on a tabletop exercise with your peers. John Hudson can signpost you towards that. You've got the NEBRC sort of help, which is almost you can start to unpick through some of the services that we offer, your unknown. So doing some sort of gap analysis and testing, maybe some policy reviews, you can identify where your gaps are or where your gaps may be in relation to some of this stuff. And then you've got some of the things that Ed offers, which is where if you do have those gaps, you've got those technical solutions which you can bring in play. And some of the things that Graham's obviously touched on around the technical solutions moving forward. So really, the help is there. Please feel free to get in touch. obviously be signed up as free core members, have a look at our webpage, speak to Graham on LinkedIn, get in touch with John Hudson, have a look at the Redstor stuff. Please start to have a look at what may be appropriate to you in your context. And yeah, I look forward to speaking to some of you in the future. Thank you very much for your time.